Welcome back to Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. This is Juliette Hahn here with my co-host, Brent Sopel. How are you?
Oh, I'm excited to hear what you got to say.
Well, we've been now chatting and you're like, we just fucking hit play. I just said so many things. We went on like 5 different topics. We could talk about homeschooling. We could talk about ADHD. We could talk about audiobooks and how people don't think that that's actually reading.
No, let's go there because that's when you got fired up the most.
So there was a post on social media, and I've heard this for years. People would say, oh, well, if you're listening to a book, it's not really reading. And I actually, every time I say it, I get angry, like really angry, because it is reading. You're just doing it in a different way. You're learning in a different way. You're learning through a skill set that's stronger than your skill set of reading. And it's interesting because you don't do audiobooks or podcasts or something like that, right?
No audiobooks, podcasts. I don't think I've listened to a full podcast before. I don't know. So obviously for me, paper and pen is the biggest thing, right? We talk about this all the time. How on my walls, paper and pen with me everywhere I go. I don't retain the information
unless you write it
that way,
or read it, or do you have to read it too to retain it, like off of a piece of paper?
Yeah, that's how I have to. That's why I have to print out. Ran out of paper the other day. Because I'm always printing anything out. Like obviously, we're talking about the golf event, right? Trying to go. I've got to print it off and highlight. I got highlighters and pens everywhere. Like I'm fucking 2 years old. But that's the only way. So it's touching and feeling it, reading it off the computer. I can't. If we had to make adjustments to that deck, I'm not getting it. It's. As we had this conversation the other day, how am I going to get that information, right? So we get our information in different ways, right? I don't get it that way. And learning, we've had this conversation, I'm probably on here, is people, what have you gone back to educate yourself more, in the education world of schooling since it sucked for me? And obviously, I say not a fucking chance because of my traumas, right? Do I dive into dyslexia and stuff, research? Yeah, completely different than having to go back and do a class, for an example, or online seminar, or to grow the, I don't know what the right term, education side of me.
Yeah. No, well, the knowledge of you.
So it's people reading is getting information. And how do you get it?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Everybody gets it differently.
Well, and this brings actually, because I was at the gym and I was talking to my trainer, who actually is like, she has to write everything down. And she's not dyslexic. So I want people to think about this in their minds for a second. And as we've talked about, obviously we talk a lot about dyslexia and the 5 Ds and how people learn when they have these learning disabilities. But let's think about how you learn specifically. If you're listening to this, like think about how you learn and you retain. So are you someone that needs to write it down to retain? Are you someone that needs to read, as Brent, like off of a piece of paper? And this is what fascinates me so much, because I was 100% like that. I had to rewrite if out of a book, like in college, and this is what took so long, but like if I was studying something, I would have to take it out of the book and write it down in a notepad for me to retain it. And that's how I learned. Now, here's the thing, is I know Montgomery, that's the way he does it, but he's so dysgraphic. So it's almost like this, it's almost like a real, and so are you. That's like such, like, think about that for a second. That's such a mind fuck. Like, to be able to be like, okay, how I learn, but then I have another learning disability in the way I learn best. And it's hard for me to then go back and read what I'm writing. But sometimes it's just that actual, like, forming the letters and putting them on paper. But when you're really dysgraphic, your mind also
Yeah.
is trying to figure out how to form the letters.
It almost helps on why, again, it doesn't do it, for, visual purposes. That hand motion almost takes the wire and connects it. Like think of a cord
I
to
love that.
an outlet so that we could get that information. Again, and this is, most people don't know how, they get their information. We talk about the 5 love language. Everybody's got different love language. What is yours? How do you get information? And this is what you talk about all the time is most people don't know there's another way. Sam drove 10 miles. I don't know where the fuck Sam is. Show me where Sam is. I'm a visual. Like I've got, I have to. Yeah, otherwise, no clue. In year, in year one, out the other, no idea. Right. So, instruction to go and do something. Zero clue. And that's the biggest thing to the world is how do you get your information? Corporate America. Everybody's obviously emails and guidelines and I'm HR's worst nightmare, right? But I can't do that.
For many different reasons.
Oh yeah. But so you get these 10-page novels of email. Not a fucking chance. Could I do that?
Right. No, and it's really fascinating because as I said to you, that's how I used to be. And then there was something, and I want to say it was in the Palm Pilot years when I worked in corporate America, and I used this Palm Pilot, and for some reason, because I was able to write it, but it was still electronic, that my brain did a switch. And so I can, however, what I'm learning is what I'm doing is also things I really like, right? So like if I went back and tried to study something that I didn't like, would I have to go back to pen and paper? It would be interesting to think. I'm not going back, so we're not going to fucking know. But
somebody asked me that question the other day. I mean, can you do that rather than on the pen and paper? I've never tried it. And then I got to carry Palm Pilot or whatever the fuck you called it.
Yeah, well, so that I know. So I think it was Laura that actually, because she was asking me, and I was like, so there is something very interesting in that. And I do think when you're comfortable with what you're doing, so you're like, why am I going to change it? Right? Like if I'm comfortable with it, why am I going to change it? And others might say, well, there's technology that could actually help you maybe get, like we always talk about hitting that ceiling. And then is there another thing that you can hit another ceiling? So like if someone sat with you and helped you, go ahead.
No, actually, I was just going to, because that leads into, what your conversation with Truman on Friday.
Remind me.
Different anxieties for dyslexics, right? Talking about, so it's, and we're talking about that meeting I had, obviously me going somewhere, I'm hours early. And I shared this, one of my John Tracy is, I walk into a room, I scan where I can sit. Obviously, there's always the furthest away from the teacher. It's always where my back is against the wall. So nobody can see how I'm writing and what I'm writing.
Right.
I would never last if I had my back to the door, right? So somebody could walk in and be looking over my shoulder. Never. I'd never. I'd hang myself. Mm-mm. So
and accommodations, right? Put kids in the front of the room.
No, so that everybody can walk by and look at you. Oh, look at you're writing. You're an idiot. So it's, and I'll always have, instead of having it like flat on a desk, I'll have it kind of on my lap to hide it too more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that brings me to when we were in that meeting at that college and you and I both sat down and we both were, the anxiety that I could that we both had, because it was like, oh, wow. It just comes in such different ways. And one of the things, so this weekend, Penelope wanted me to watch the series with her. She's been begging to watch it. I'm not going to even say the name of the series, but she's like, it's really sad. I almost threw up. I cried so hard. And I was like, I don't want to watch it. Why do I want to watch this? She's like, please.
Oh,
I know.
That hard. What?
Yeah. She's like, please. She's like, Mom, it's so good. And I was like, okay, it doesn't sound very good.
This is where 100% women are fucked, right? I cried so I almost puked, but it was so good. How do those words all line together? How do they go together? No, it's so good. Like the pain's so good. I want more. Yeah, that's my day when I wake up. Fuck.
It brings emotions, especially for a teenager. I remember listening to sad songs and
because I really want emotion. Right? That's what I want now. More emotion. Can I have it, please? Fuck.
Right. So here, this is wait until you hear this. She's like, but it's in subtitles. I said, honey, this first of all sounds like my worst fucking nightmare. I said, are you kidding me? I said, because I know how much you love this and I want to, but like you're telling me that you almost threw up and then you're telling me I have to read it. I was like, do you understand how awful you're painting this picture?
So here's a question. If I want to watch a movie, I'm going to watch a movie. I'm not going to fucking read a movie. And I remember, I think the first one, what was it? Hidden Dragon, Crouching Tiger or something?
Yeah.
That is, I think that was the first time I've ever seen something. I'm like, what the fuck is this? No.
Oh my God, I can totally see you.
No.
Yeah. So just paint this. So I was like, so Dan was away this weekend with Montgomery and Truman was out. And I was like, okay, like, I want to hang out with her, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it a try. But so this is what she said to me before. She's like, well, maybe I'll read it to you. And I was like, okay, if you like, you're giving me every option not to be like, no, I'm not doing it. So I will do this for you. I think you're going to have to. She's like, well, can you try like when you first start, like try her. And I was like, fine. Oh my God, Brent, you would have died because I started reading it. And then I was like, first of all, it went faster than I could read it. Then I was like, so it probably was like 5 slides. I was like, you have to pause. And she's like, what? And I was like, I am focusing so much on the words that I cannot do this for 5 hours, whatever, how long this thing is. I cannot, I was like, I will fucking die. But I was like, Pips, I'm not understanding what's happening. Like, I literally can't tell you what I just read or what's happening. And she's like, okay, I'll read it to you. So literally we watched 5 episodes and she read to me as I listened. And I have to say, it is very sad. And it is good, but
that doesn't go hand in hand. That doesn't go together. No.
It does, but there's just it's a lot of like, it's
fucking salty and sweet. You too. Fuck.
I don't like salty and sweet together. Those two don't go together. But this, right. So, but what stopped me in my tracks for a second. Again, I'm 51. I was like, oh my God. I have done other subtitle things in the past slightly. I really don't. I really, really don't. But I was like, I don't even know what I just read. And I don't even know what's going to happen. There's no way I can do it. I'm focusing so much on the words, reading the words and Penelope really tries to understand. Sometimes she does and then she doesn't, but she was like, oh, and I was like, I'm not comprehending what is happening. Like that's part of my dyslexia. I can read it, but I'm not comprehending it. So I don't know what's going on. And so I can't do
one ear with the other.
Yeah, it's just a word, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so she's like, I was like, so I know you want like there to be emotion stirred in me. There's going to be no emotion stirred in me because it's not setting. Yeah, I know. But she's like, you can't go on your phone. Like, so she's like, no phones. We were like,
fucking Nazi. Jesus.
Well, because she really wanted me to, this is like, this is something that means a lot to her, this series. If anyone wants to know, you can DM me on the side, but I'm not going to talk about it on here. Very interesting. But it did take me back for a second because I was like, fuck, I can't do this. No. I was like, because I literally can't. And I'm not saying that I can't because I'm trying to get out of watching it. I literally cannot comprehend what is fucking happening.
It's even like if they put up a headline or of company or what, stop, like what, no.
But that's how many times we read.
And I'm watching a movie are 2 different things. They do not go together.
They don't. Nope. But so that's what brings me to like audiobooks. it's how we learn, but not everyone, even certain dyslexics, that is still, they might still have to read it. Some dyslexics need to read it and see it. Like they need to look at the words as they're hearing it. And some can just listen. I sometimes need to do both. It really depends. But if I'm listening to an audiobook that's not like a complex, like it's just light,
Who listens to audiobooks?
I do. A lot of people. That's why there's something called
Not
Audible. Oh my God. A lot of people listen to fucking audio. I actually enjoy listening to a good
So
book.
when do you listen to audiobooks?
So it depends. Sometimes when I'm walking the boxers, other times when I'm driving. Those are usually the two times.
So the cars for talking.
Yeah. Well, it depends. If I'm in, or the airplane.
Well, you fucking friend everybody in the airplane. You walk in, you're friends with everybody. Hey, I got my attention hat on, and here we go. Oh, here's 250 of my closest friends. There isn't a flight where you don't tell me you made friends with somebody.
They're plane friends. They're not close friends. They're plane friends. Very different. I actually, the episode that just went out, I was dying because you made fun of me so bad. And I was, if you need a laugh, listen to the last episode that went out. And when this goes out, it will be 2 before, because you were in a mood and I was fucking really tired and I was in a mood and we were like bickering. It's really funny. No, but that is when I listened to
me, I'd be so pissed.
No, I wouldn't fucking talk to you. If you did not seem like you wanted to, I promise you, if you do not seem like you want to chat, I don't chat you. I'm very intuitive and know when people want to talk and when people don't want to talk. I don't initiate many of the plane friends, by the way. I will fucking bet you so much money.
No. That's why you wear a attention hat.
No, I don't wear the attention hat. I actually don't wear hats, except winter hats. Anyways, attention deficit man. It is where I usually listen to, that's like the times that I do. And if I'm in business mode, I don't talk to fucking anyone and I don't give off that I want to talk.
And, that's, I spend 24 hours down the phone, right? It's talking to parents. It's talking to, people about dyslexia, so that's all I do is talk. About the foundation, it's nonstop, it's nonstop for me. It's, but technology, Siri's racist, so why would I use her? She doesn't listen to what I say.
Because you're Canadian. No, but I would actually one of these days, if you're open to it, I would, one time that I'm in Chicago, I would love to get and just see, because my dad was also like, my dad has to write everything down, but my dad loves to try to get all the new technologies because that's just him.
And here, and to back, point of, paper pen for me, we're not very adventurous.
Right.
And that's what the conversation was, on Friday. I didn't finish that part. Is we are not adventurous. Or the same thing at the same restaurant. Like for me, I turn on, the same channel. It used to be the same shows or golf. I won't change it. I won't turn anything on. Our days are so hard of wondering what's around the next corner. How am I going to have to lie? How am I going to have to fake my way out of this thing? The anxiety that goes with, with every day. So it's, we, order the same food. We don't, because our days are so hard already. I'll just try something new. No, what comes with that is failure. And that's what we've had our whole life, is being failed and let down. So saying you tried something in a new restaurant, it was terrible. And most people, I won't do it again. The hurt that comes with that brings you back to, childhood. Mm-hmm. So we know what we grab, or know what you want, or you can do this, or so back to, paper pen for me. Maybe that I could do it that way, but I'm not going to try and find out because what if it doesn't? Then I failed.
Right. Or if you can't do it. And I so appreciate that. Like why you didn't want to start the podcast. One of the reasons.
Well, no, full on stockage, but we went out to dinner Friday night, and I said, we got somebody who can borderline pass Juliet and stalking. So, so this guy was in, this was in Florida. I'll tell you, kind of the overhead of the story. And he was seeing somebody, and he was on Match.com. So he thought he turn it off. He was about to start his teaching job. And then this one lady was I think just got divorced or whatever. She messaged 5 guys that she liked. 4 of them responded, 1 didn't. And that was him. So he's a teacher, goes in, like a student teacher or something like that. And he looks down the hall and he's like, oh, she's hot. I hope that I get to work with her. Well, he ended up getting to work with her. And that's the girl who messaged. He was the one guy that didn't respond of the 5.
Oh, really?
So we wanted to, Liz and I want to dig in. Like, what do you think she thought when he walked in? Is this guy stalking me? That's just one guy. Like, the whole world now he's going to be a teacher. So I'm like, oh, that's full on stalkage. I'm like, oh, there's Juliet. But Liz was like, I want to see the text message.
Did she want to start a podcast?
From her to her friends when he walked in the classroom going,
oh, right. Totally.
This guy stacked me down. He's in my classroom. Oh my God. Like, do I have to call the cops?
That must have been so fucking creepy.
He didn't see it because he thought he turned it off.
Right. That's so funny. Oh, that's really funny.
Now obviously now I'm married now. If that's not supposed to be meant to be, I don't know what God's creator is.
Yeah,
but that is like, I want to see the text messages from her and her friends after, like, can you only imagine? Yeah. I'm like, oh, first thing come in my head, I'm like, Juliet right there stalking.
Shut up. That's not the first thing that you thought. You're just fucking with me. But really, the messages when she saw him, she must have been like, oh my God. Like she must have like to close her mouth and be like, oh.
4 guys responded, and he's the only one that didn't, and that's who. And that's
again, who walked in.
Even next step, even if he was not teaching in the school and not her classroom or something, in her. Mm-hmm.
In her classroom. But even the fact that like they even cross paths in the live world is crazy. And I love it. I love those stories. I love those stories.
I've heard a lot of stories, but I was like, wow, like that's the first one that takes it to the next level of that one's supposed to be like,
yeah.
I'm surprised she didn't call the cops though. Stalking first, because
right, like, oh fuck, oh my God, that's crazy. Those meant to be things are so interesting. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the topic we were talking about. Is what is so interesting is like in a safe space, people try things, right? But and even if it's uncomfortable, like, okay, I know this person's not going to judge me, even if I fail many times in front of them, even though it's still a very uncomfortable thing, right? I mean, we all can experience it, whether we're dyslexic or not dyslexic. So I do want to practice the pen, if you allow me, just to see, because you might be like, oh, you know what, maybe down the road, what if all of a sudden like paper goes extinct and or is that an extinct, I think.
See all the trees out there, ain't going anywhere.
Okay. But anyways, but that also brings me back to the point before we started the podcast where you were saying that, you and Montgomery, you're like, if we could do a percentage things, because I do try new things, right? I do fail. I like try things but again, we've talked to anyone that's listening. They're like, here she goes with the fucking innate confidence again. But there is something in there also when we talk about, maybe it's how we were all raised, this red string that kind of connected of how my dad and myself and, Montgomery, it's a raising thing that built up that self-confidence. So we are like, okay. And now will Montgomery always have it, now that he's out of the nest and doing his own thing? Who knows, but I do know the uncomfortable of like, oh my God, okay, I could totally get exposed. This is so uncomfortable, but I still, and maybe it's just my attention deficit that doesn't let me think deeply into it. And I'm like, okay, I'm diving in. Oh fuck. Okay. I don't know what I'm doing. I got to figure it out. And because I don't want to fail at it, right? So I figure it out, and I know most things I can figure out. I think.
It's interesting. I'll dive in and figure out I don't want to fail. I'd rather not even start it.
Right.
We were talking about casinos, the other day. We were talking about gambling, obviously. I got enough problems as it is. I never gotten that because I can't do math. So, somebody's like, oh, you're $5 on something. Oh, you might win 10. Nope. I don't even get there. I might lose 5. So, obviously 2 different mindsets, right? You might be able to win 10. Yeah, I don't even go there. Not a fucking, I could lose 5, right? So, it's just how different we are, right? If the negative side, the positive side, however that ends up being, it's very different.
Yeah. It is very different. And now this is where then I go into like the yoo-hoo unicorn.
Fucking unicorn.
There's also so many personality. There's your astrology sign. There. If you're watching YouTube, I wanted that face. That's why I said that. But there's a lot of things bringing up, right? There's so many things that go into what people do and their personalities and those kind of traits. But when you continuously fail, or you're continuously embarrassed when you're trying something new because you can't get it, it's not something that most people are like, hey, let me go try to see. Like the glass half full, glass half empty, right? Personalities.
And obviously I talk about that, certain things, I can, I look at that, a lot. I can make people look at that way. But for me is, trying something new is the worst thing ever, because I might, not do it. And most people don't, again, obviously my traumas take me that way. So I do the same, people, talk about, OCD habits or, my hockey rituals. I succeeded at doing this way. I'm not going to try something else.
Right. And that's what we were talking about this weekend.
That's what, we're talking about it. So I don't think people understand the depths of this is. This is why self-esteem is so important to me. How many people, how many conversations I have, and most dyslexics don't have a lot of friends. And I'm talking about relating in the younger world, right? Elementary and middle school and high school, when it's so important. We don't have that group of friends, or for the most part, we're different, and people still think I'm a fucking complete whack job, right? I am half retarded, but as a kid, you don't understand why I just want to be friends with this person, and why can't what's wrong with me? Why don't I have a group? I get these calls so many times, right? And then you got this little fucking unicorn over there, and I got all my friends, and I'm bouncing around like a fucking leprechaun finding a pot of gold.
Well, but that's where it is. This whole is it this? I mean, some people could say it's oblivious, but I don't know.
You were blonde when you were younger, right?
Did you say I was blonde? Fuck off. You're making yourself laugh, aren't you? It is, though, if we think about it, though, it is a very interesting concept to think. Because I also think of some of the people that we've interviewed that you can kind of think about, okay, what they said. And then later, as we were like, well, this and that, as you were like, well, did this happen? And so I think that there's so many circumstances that go into it, right? As we talk about, but self-esteem is the common denominator of all of it. And it's how much self-esteem you have, that can help you be a little bit more unicorny.
It's somebody's like, I just had the fuck you attitude. I played pro for 18. There wasn't a day where I thought I made it.
Right.
It's some of the big CEOs. It's you fall how many times you get back up, but it's how many. It's not once that I thought I made it. 18 years. Somebody's like, oh, when did you know you could do it? Or never thought I could. Never thought I just kept going, kept doing it.
Do you think, though, if you talk to the majority of professional athletes, they would say the same thing or no?
No. They always, because you hear on podcasts, I knew, at this time or this, I think it's some that, that wasn't, but,
yeah,
I bet you if 95% of the guys at least enjoyed making it, right? Not saying I didn't enjoy it, but it was just, it was always looking over my shoulder, in a different way.
The stress and anxiety that you lived every day because you were like, what will I do if I don't do this? Right? Like, what will I do if I don't do this?
Right.
I mean, just think for one fucking second, if you're listening to this, think about that, because that is awful, really. And it's because you had so many people fail you in your younger years,
younger years, holy shit.
You're still younger. You have so many people fail you, I should say. You have so many people fail you, period. But it all started in your younger years.
Right. And that's where, the foundation and, every dyslexic gets failed. And that's why we talk about what we do and, why we do what we do is if we can limit those failures, limit your traumas.
1,000,000,000%. I mean, it is the school systems, the way things are done for people that learn, everything is a box. And if you don't fit into that box, you as your own person, and it happens at some point in our childhood where it's like we have to take control for ourselves to try to figure it out. And we don't even realize we do that. Because I do now. Yeah. I can look back and now be like, you know what? I never really thought that. Like, I never really thought. I was like, no, people had, but really, no. You know that you have to take everything into your own hands and you have to do it, or it's not going to get done right, or someone's not going to understand you and you're going to be exposed, or you're not going to be able to do it. And then, especially if you're in school, you're going to get a bad grade. Like, there's so many things that right there, and we talked about where Montgomery was very like, Mom, this teacher's not going to get it. Like, if you get a call from the school, this is where I am, but fucking lie for me. And I'd be like, okay. Like, oh shit. It's, and we don't even realize that is not right. Right. It's just like,
well, we do what we have to do to get through. And that's our day. It's what do we have to do? And that's why, how am I going to have to lie? How am I going to have to fucking make something, and lying's, it's not the right way to say it, but how am I going to have to fake it till I make it? How am I going to have to zigzag on this post? How am I going to have to trying to, how am I going to get around this? And how are we going to do that? Like, try living like that all day long. Are we successful at some of the stuff? Right. Do I pull some things off that most people can't? Right. Because I have to go differently. Like, what are you talking about? You talk about, hockey, obviously, the other day, working with the best golf coach in history of the world, with his kid, and he's like, how'd you learn how to coach like this? You're the best hockey coach. Well, coming from a guy who's the best golf coach in the world, like, You don't get any higher than this guy. Obviously, it was good compliment, but I get told every day how stupid I am when it comes to hockey. You don't know what you're doing.
Right.
So it's not understanding what we're trying to do, and is because we got to go at it differently. It might not make sense, but it will at the end. It's just how we have to navigate through, through our day, and that's anxiety, or it could come across as OCD, or you got to do this. I got to do the same thing over and over again, because we're good at it. So let's just say walking by, turn on the sink, and flip the light, and do. That's a success. That's a win for us. We did it.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes across as, again, I've heard it, the equivalent of OCD many times. Nobody would ever think of that little win, flipping a switch and turning the sink. Like, that's a win for us. Like, that is big. And now, the quasi-normal people would never think of that and still think we're retarded even after I said it.
Yeah. So one of the things I also hear you saying that I think is important for people to listen to, and you've said it many times, but like, no one is born with anxiety, right? We all, like, it builds up, right? Oh, my kid was this. And then all of a sudden, I can remember, and I actually have the photo. And I could throw up right now, even just saying it. Montgomery's first day of kindergarten. And I came across it and I could see his face. He was not happy. Like, kids are happy to go to kindergarten, right? He was not happy. And it wasn't, someone would say, oh, it's like a dependent thing, or, it was not like that. We did not have that relationship where he was like, needed to be near me all the time and stuff like that. That's not what our relationship was. It was the mere fact that he knew he was going to a place that he was going to have, like, it's the most heartbreaking picture. And when I came across it, it like hit me in the gut, because I was like, I knew, and this is before he was diagnosed, but I knew what I was putting my child into, right? And that doesn't feel good either, because you're like, go ahead.
No, don't. It'd be great if you can say that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So then you didn't. And that's why I talk about everything I do is you can't see signs of something if you don't understand it. So you say that now, right? You didn't know that then.
No, I didn't. No.
Makes sense now.
Oh, yes. Poor
but
kid.
So you can't go and be yourself, because you didn't, hindsight's 2020 for a reason, right? So it's, obviously looking at it different. That's why we talk about this, all these things, so many different facets, so that you might recognize something.
Right. And that's exactly where I'm 100%. Nice lead in. If your kid all of a sudden starts to develop things where the teachers are like, I think they might have some OCD, or you realize they have some anxiety, dive deeper into what it is, and don't let the school be like, this is what we think it is. He needs to be medicated, or she needs to be medicated, or all these different things. It could, and I'm going to say simple, but there's nothing simple about any of this. But it could be as like, okay, they're actually struggling learning, and they're able to get around it, right? Montgomery memorized. So he was able to, like, it didn't seem like it because he's such a personal kid, very good at communication, was like, oh, okay. So he didn't come across as he was struggling, but he knew that he did not know what the fuck was going on. And the anxiety of how am I going to get around this, or what am I going to get found out? Even though those thoughts, he obviously didn't know that that's where his anxiety was coming from. But like this year in college, and he's good because we talk about it often, but he'll be like, Jesus,
the one that I hear a lot,
crazy.
My kid's a perfectionist. There's no such thing as a perfectionist. Okay.
Right.
What got the kid to that point? Coloring our line, did the kid get yelled at? Just using that as an example, like that's put in there for trauma. So what happened to get there, right? And then if you keep going year after year of doing that, then it's not a fun life, right? But what made that happen?
Mm-hmm. And they're also
no such as a perfectionist. Yeah. There's no such thing as a perfectionist, only better. What is it? Practice till you're perfect. Yeah. There's no such thing as perfect. It's just better.
Right. And and someone could be listening to this, be like, my kids, is a perfectionist, but they didn't learn different, but we were going through a divorce. And so some kids also pick up on things like, okay, they can't control anything else, and they're good in school. So they're going to be a perfectionist in school, and they're going to make sure that they get 100 because that they can control that. Some, families.
That's trauma.
Trauma, 100%. And, eating disorders, like all of these things that when a kid feels out of control, they try, or even adults, right? They feel out of control. They can't control anything else out. So they control only the things that they control. That all comes from trauma. Where does that trauma come from? And that's what, why you started this
ODD,
foundation.
Opposition to Defiance Disorder. Same thing.
Right.
They're defying the adult. What happened?
Right.
Is it going through a divorce? They just don't, that's not how we are. What happened? I had a kid, I'm playing hockey with him. Once I found that out, I changed my approach. He was the best goalie in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so there's, that I call that one a made up name, right? It's all these smart people.
Oh, totally.
Think they're smart. It's all trauma. And drugs and alcohol. Addiction isn't. It's what caused it.
And if you can get to the bottom of the trauma and talk about the trauma and work on the trauma, not saying it's going to be fixed, but there's what is it? The understanding.
Death. 85% of people are homeless. It all starts with a death. Lose your job, drugs, alcohol, get involved, right? But what started it? It's going back to what's the root cause? Have the understanding. If your kid's getting diagnosed with anxiety in middle school, no.
Right. Find out.
There's a reason why. No. Fuck off to the therapist. Diagnose it. Fuck you. No. If the kid is always saying stomach hurt, and I think I told you the story when I was at Hoffman. I was coaching mites for 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, and the dad texted on the group text of the parents say, Benjamin, I don't remember what the name was, can't play goal, but I'll meet the parents there to give him the equipment, right? Because you share equipment. And I got there, and his dad's like, we had a bunch of tests, last week, there's been something going on in his stomach. I said, what? Just, you should probably look into school. Something happened at school. Dad's like, what? 4 months later, he called me. He goes, I got to say thank you. You were right. Something happened at school. Something with the teacher. So it took me, 15 seconds to put that together.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you would never catch things. You'd never understand things like that if you didn't have it happen to you. Right. So kid doesn't want to go to school, always complaining, a stomach ache or a headache. Because you can't see those, right? So they can fake those.
Or they really do have a stomach ache because of anxiety, right? And they don't realize that it's other
knots or what, they can't describe it, right? But it's a lot of times is they can't, it causes that. They don't know what's causing that, right? They're too young to know, to have the understanding of that. It's there's a reason why. And then once they figure out what works, we continue to do it. Find your ways around the teacher. This teacher's like apples, I'll bring apple, right?
You become a charmer.
From afar, you start figuring out, who, how can you use different things, what props, what people, you're try strategizing in your head all day to get through this, or, okay, I got this, and I got to do this, and I got to figure this out. Try living with that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, I always say, somebody was in my brain for 5 minutes, you'd want to jump too. It's, and try being a kid with all this going on and not understanding it.
Right.
Somebody said to me, just tell me why don't you just tell me what you saw? You say that to a kindergarten or a grade 1 kid, right? We don't know. We don't know what that means.
Right. We don't know the difference. Right.
Yeah. Johnny's, perfection. No. Usually the parents, was, you abused by your dad or mom, like.
Yeah, there's something more, and we're not asking the right questions.
Yes.
People are band-aiding things.
Yeah. And that's why days are hard, right? I don't think I should, this is going to sound, I've ever asked the same question the same way as somebody else.
Yeah.
It's because I'm looking at it so differently than everybody else. All right. Why did you do this? And okay, now to backtrack parents to this, just because I've had it all, right? So my understanding is completely different. And just about every time, like, no, I never thought of it that way. I've never asked that. Well, and the school
So many
counselors,
times.
You talk about, I saw something, cutting, when I spoke at a school, and that had gone up, in high school. And all these things, and they're completely so far fucking off. You cut to feel pain, right? Feel is the key word here. Feel. Why they're numb? Okay, why? Why are they? And then 1, 2, you keep going to feeling, right? Why did they get there? They're not, there's not, and nobody goes there. I was listening to the school counselor talk, and I wanted to fucking punch her right in the face, because what she was telling her to do was, and the parents, it was, when you don't have any understanding.
Yeah. And that's why, that's what it all comes down to, right? And that's why we get on and talk and tell and share, because, and, things pop up, and it's like, what, this is something that we need to talk about. And I know this all started with an audiobook, but if a kid can learn from an audiobook, or they can read at a higher level because they're listening to an audiobook, if they're dyslexic, they're going to get comprehension, if it works for them, from a different way. And it's just going to keep them where they're like, oh, I read that. And it's just going to be a different confidence builder. I mean, we did audiobooks. I can't even tell you, during dinner. They would ask. They loved it. Are you kidding? They loved it. We didn't have the van with the TV. We did not. I was like, we're not getting a fucking TV in our car. We're going to be like observant out. What the fuck? And we listened we would listen to audiobooks.
I had that, and then I had the screen split. So when I was driving, I could put a movie and watch while I was driving myself.
I'm sure you could.
But it was, nope. No, yeah, no. Fuck. Just like, I read to my kids. I'm like, oh my God, I want to fucking stab myself. Did I tell a story? Trying to read the book to Peter, and Paul walked by, he pulled it out of my hand and gave me an easier one.
Knew it. Yeah. It's all those things. And I think, I read to the kids because they loved, Montgomery loved words. And so I did, even though, and as they got harder, it was like, okay, I'm going to be slower at this, but I'm going to do it.
And I don't care, so listen to what you said. He loved words. So I wouldn't, now I'm going to say, I wouldn't say he loved words. He knew he was different and he had to do that to be able to survive.
He was curious.
I wouldn't even say he's curious. That's how smart and how early we know we're different, right?
Right.
So come to find out, obviously dyslexic, right? Severe, he knew, how, whatever. He wasn't curious. He didn't love words. He just knew he had to. And look how many years he got away with memorizing, right?
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, it was a giant coping mechanism, if that's what we want to use that word or whatever. Right. Yeah.
So
no, I hear you.
That's a prime example of how different we are, how early we know we're different. How amazing that was to be able for him to do it that way. He loved words. Ask him today, call him. Hey, you love words? You're going to say, fuck you, mom.
Today he would say, no, he did not love words. And that's where, and we're not going to get into this because we could talk a million hours on this, but that's where the parental match is really interesting, because I could have been a parent that was like, no, and didn't do it. And then he wouldn't have gotten the skills, or he would have found out a way maybe, or whatever. It's just interesting that it kind of worked the way it did.
Yeah. And we find ways, right? You're right. Back, parenting match, whatever, he finds ways, right? We find ways.
Yeah.
We go in the side door to get to this because we got to go this, and you got to go 16 stairs. You got to this.
I'm laughing because if I called him right now and said, "Do you love words?" he would get so pissed and be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Right. He would be so angry. He'd be like, "You're fucking on crack."
100%. That's exactly right. I fucking hate words. I want to blow up every library. We're a giant public library. Fuck that. Burn that shit down. I don't want a fucking library.
And that's Penelope's favorite. She wants to go to every public library.
And hang myself in front of the library, and so keep that's how but that's how different our brains are, and that's the problem. Is people, you said Penelope brains are the people that are running the school education system, and here we are on the other side, right? It's audiobooks. Oh, fuck.
I know there's so many audiobooks that I want you to read, and I listen to, and I know you never.
Don't even.
I don't. Have I ever? I think in the beginning I did. No. I think I was like, you should listen to this.
It's Elizabeth says, listen to Joe Rogan. I'm like, you listen to this fucking guy talk? Just like stand-up comedian going to see somebody stand up. Sounds awful.
It's just not your thing.
I don't listen, no. Or we were talking, talking, forest preserves and fucking little red schoolhouse. I'm like, not a goddamn chance did any of my kids see that shit. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Zoos, fuck no. I lived on a farm. I was going farm.
Right.
Like her niece has been zoos all over. They drive to go see zoos. I'm like, not a fucking chance.
See, I didn't do zoos because I think they trapped the animals, and so we didn't do any of that when my kids were little.
Here we go, Pete. Hey, PETA.
I did. My kids, there were some that we would, if they had big enough, like the Bronx Zoo, I was like, okay, they have big enough places. But any like the whale stuff, I would be like, do you know that baby whale was stolen out of the water? My kids were like, what? Later in life, they would say, yeah, it was like fucking trauma, mom. Like people would be like, we went to SeaWorld. Oh, our mom says that you can't go to SeaWorld. They stole that mom out of the ocean. And I was like, they did. And people should know that. That's a terrible place.
Well, in Chicago, there's Lincoln, I think it's Lincoln Zoo or Lincoln Park Zoo. Downtown Chicago. I guess it's open to the public. It's always open. I've never been there. I had no fucking clue. Chicago's all these museums. Never. This was like you've never been.
I love a good museum.
Oh.
Well, that's not. I do. I love a good museum.
Look at a painting. Like I could have fucking thrown a painting against the wall. You would. I knew. The problem is to that is our brains are wired so differently, right? I'll see what I say. I'll say what I see, and they look at me and go, "What fucking drugs are you on? I'm like,
but I think that's what's fascinating. I love to see what
there's
other
nothing
people think
fascinating
about
that.
I
don't
actually,
fucking care.
I want to go to a museum with you now and see what you see. I think that's so fascinating.
I'm like, they're like, what are you like? Oh, example. On Facebook, they have a scene, and somewhere in that scene, there's, God, take forever. Like, oh, this is fun. This is fun. Really? No, we were. I was still playing. Went to Paris, and we stood in line to see this fucking thing in Mona Lisa. Like this goddamn thing. I stood this long for this. Like,
the shadows.
The shadow?
We're gonna leave that at that. Yeah, I actually like art.
Oh my!
I can't draw. Now I think this is my creativeness. I'm fascinated with like artists that like, oh my God, I think it's fascinating.
Elizabeth,
but I can't.
she's her mom. Growing up, they had every fucking museum, and
we did too. We did too. We used to go to the orchestra when we were little, the Philadelphia Orchestra. I know. My mom used to take the 5 kids. We used to go to the Philadelphia Orchestra and stuff. And now I can't say that I really love that.
Like, oh my God. How much trauma did you, like, holy.
All right, we're going to leave it at that. So think about your childhood and all the things that you did and where you got your confidence. I love that question. And I do want to start, like when we have guests on, I do want to start asking that where people find their confidence. And Brent's checked out. So I'm going to leave it at, thank you for joining.
Some of us don't have confidence.
I know, but some people you have a little confidence in some things. And I can tell you, you know what, next episode we're going to dive through. I can pull out your confidence. I know you have it because I've seen it. And it's not faking it till you make it. But we're at 57 minutes. But this is a whole nother conversation. I'm going to actually put it in my, because I think we have to do another recording this week. Yeah, my Trello board. Actually, I'm going to put it in my notes in my phone because I do. We're gonna dive in and talk about the different strengths that you have. Okay. Thank you for joining Word Blindness Dyslexia Exposed. Don't forget to go to the foundation's website, sopalfoundation.org. We have a lot of stuff coming up and some really like getting closer to be able to publish some stuff that is going to be life-changing for people, which excites all of us. You know what I say every time? Like, rate, review, and share. Share, because you don't know who needs to hear literally everything that we said here. Someone can find importance of it because someone is going through something or knows someone going through something. So we'll see you for another episode of Word Blindness Dyslexia Exposed.